CEO fired a black single father. Then an accident changed everything she thought she knew. Marcus Webb set his alarm for 5:15 every morning, not because he needed that much time to get ready, but because Amara did. She was 7 years old and had strong opinions about which socks she wore, which cup her orange juice went in, and whether her 2 braids were even on both sides. Marcus had learned, in the 2 years since her mother passed, that rushing a grieving little girl in the morning was a battle nobody won. So he woke up early. He made her eggs. He checked her braids twice. And then he dropped her at school and drove 40 minutes through Atlanta traffic to get to his desk at Meridian Solutions before anyone noticed what time it was. He had been doing this for 6 years. 6 years of showing up, delivering results, learning the systems, staying quiet when he needed to stay quiet, and speaking up just enough to be heard without being seen as a problem. He knew that balance well. Most black men in corporate offices learned it early, whether anyone taught it to them or not. Marcus was a senior data analyst. He was good at his job not in the way people say just to be kind, but in the way that showed up in numbers. His project accuracy rate was among the highest on the team. His reports were clean. His presentations were clear. His manager had told him twice, in writing, that he was on the path to a team lead position. That was before Keisha died, and that was before Amara got sick. The diagnosis came on a Wednesday afternoon in October, delivered by a soft-spoken pediatric specialist at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, who used words that Marcus had to ask her to repeat twice. A rare kidney condition, not immediately life-threatening, but serious, requiring regular monitoring, specialist appointments, and in the near future, a round of treatment that would be hard on a small body. The doctor was kind. She gave him pamphlets. She told him they had caught it early enough to manage it well. Marcus sat in that chair beside Amara's examination table, held his daughter's hand, and nodded the way a person nods when they are absorbing something too large to absorb all at once. On the drive home, Amara asked if she was going to be okay. He told her yes. He said it the way he always said difficult things to her, steady, warm, looking straight ahead at the road, because he had learned that children read the body more than the words. He did not tell anyone at work, not his manager, not his closest colleague, not HR. He had done the math in his head, the way he always did, and the math told him that disclosing a sick child was a risk. It could invite sympathy that curdled into doubt. It could make him seem distracted. It could quietly shift the way people saw him from an asset into a liability. He had watched it happen to others. He was not willing to let it happen to him. So he managed it alone. He rearranged his schedule around treatment dates. He came in late on the mornings after Amara's hardest nights. He left early twice without explanation, because the clinic called and said she needed him. He worked from his car in hospital parking lots, finishing reports on a laptop balanced on the steering wheel, because the work still had to get done, and nobody was going to do it for him. He was doing everything he could. He just wasn't doing it in a way anyone could see. Diana Colton had built Meridian Solutions from nothing. She had started it in a rented office with 2 colleagues and a business plan she had rewritten 11 times, and over 18 years, she had grown it into a firm with 400 employees, 3 office locations, and a reputation in the Atlanta business community for being sharp, efficient, and results-driven. She was proud of what she had built. She was also proud of the fact that she held everyone to the same standard, regardless of who they were. In her mind, that was fairness. She first noticed Marcus's attendance issues in November. Her HR director flagged it during a routine review: 3 late arrivals, 1 unexplained early departure, and a project milestone that had been submitted 4 days behind schedule. Diana asked whether Marcus had offered any explanation. He had not given a detailed one. She asked whether anyone had spoken with him. They had twice, in general terms. He had said he was going through some personal things, and that he was handling it. Diana approved a formal verbal warning, then a written one, then a performance improvement plan. She followed the process. She documented everything. She gave him what she considered a fair amount of runway, and when the pattern continued through December and into January, another late arrival, another missed deadline, another vague response when asked what was going on, she made the decision she felt the documentation required. She did not make it happily. She made it the way she made hard decisions, which was carefully and without drama, because she believed that sentimentality in leadership created inconsistency, and inconsistency was not fair to anyone. She called Marcus into the conference room on a Tuesday morning in January and told him that the company was ending his employment, effective immediately. He sat across from her in a gray sweater and looked at her with an expression she could not fully read. He was not angry. He was not pleading. He listened to everything she said. He asked 2 quiet questions about his final paycheck and his benefits continuation. She answered them. He thanked her for the opportunity, shook her hand, and left. She watched him walk to his desk, pick up a small framed photograph, and leave the building without looking back. She closed the conference room door and moved on to her next meeting. The weeks that followed were among the hardest of Marcus's life, and that was saying something, because he had buried his wife at 32. He filed for unemployment. He called everyone he trusted and asked if they knew of any contract work. A college friend connected him to a small consulting firm that needed someone to clean up a data reporting system, and Marcus worked on it in the evenings after Amara went to sleep, earning enough to cover the gap while he searched for something permanent. Amara's treatment had begun. Every other Thursday, he drove her to the clinic, sat with her through the appointments, held her hand when the parts were uncomfortable, and told her stories to keep her mind somewhere else. A neighbor named Miss Claudette, who lived 2 doors down and had known Amara since she was a baby, started appearing on treatment mornings with a covered plate of food and an offer to stay with Amara in the evenings whenever Marcus needed to work. She never made a large announcement of it. She just showed up. Marcus did not know how to thank her properly, so he started leaving fresh groceries on her porch once a week, and neither of them said a word about the arrangement. He was not okay, but he was moving, and moving, for a man in his position, was a form of being okay. Diana, in those same weeks, attended a leadership conference in Nashville. She sat on a panel about building high-performance cultures and spoke about the importance of consistent standards and clear expectations. She received good feedback. She hired a replacement for Marcus's position. She approved the Q1 budget and began planning a company retreat. She did not think about Marcus Webb often. When she did, it was briefly, and it felt closed. She had followed the process. She had given him chances. She had done what the role required. She believed that. On a Friday evening in late February, it rained heavily across Atlanta. Diana was driving home from a dinner meeting on I-285, the wide interstate that loops around the city. She was tired. The meeting had run long. The wipers were working hard against the rain, and the road was dark and slick in a way that felt manageable, until suddenly it wasn't. Her car hit a patch of standing water near an overpass, and the steering went light under her hands. Everything happened in about 3 seconds. The car slid sideways, struck the concrete median barrier on the left, and spun to a stop in the emergency lane. The airbag went off. The cabin filled with the smell of it. Her ears were ringing. She sat still for a moment, checking herself the way the mind does, automatically hands, neck, breath. She was shaken deeply, but she was conscious and she could move. Her phone had slid somewhere under the seat. The driver's door was jammed against the barrier. She could not get it open. Then there was a knock at the passenger window. She turned her head and saw a man crouching down beside the car in the rain, his face close to the glass, his expression urgent but calm. He was already on his phone, already talking to someone. He gestured to her. "Are you okay? Can you move?" And she nodded, though her hands were shaking. He stayed at the window. He kept eye contact with her. He was talking to her through the glass and to the 911 operator at the same time, his voice steady, telling her what to do with her breathing, telling her the ambulance was coming, telling her she was going to be fine. She focused on his voice, because it was the clearest thing in the moment. When the fire truck arrived and the passenger door was opened from outside, she stepped out onto the wet pavement, wrapped in a reflective blanket that someone placed around her shoulders. She was shaking but standing. She turned to find the man who had been at her window. He was standing a few feet away, giving a statement to a police officer. He was soaked. His jacket was dark with rain, and when he turned slightly, and she saw his face fully for the first time in the light of the emergency vehicles, it took her several seconds to understand what she was seeing. It was Marcus Webb. He recognized her immediately. She could see it in his face, the brief stillness, the moment of recognition, and then he simply continued speaking to the officer, calmly and clearly, as if what had just happened was the only thing that mattered. When he finished, he walked toward his car. She called after him before she could think about whether she should. "Marcus?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Why did you stop?" He turned around. He looked at her for a moment, not with coldness, not with warmth exactly, but with something straightforward and quiet. "Because you needed help," he said. Then he got in his car and drove away. Diana Colton did not sleep that night. She lay in her bed with a bruised ribcage and a fractured wrist wrapped in a temporary splint, and she stared at the ceiling and replayed the evening in a loop that kept stopping at the same place. She kept returning to the image of him at her window in the rain. She kept hearing his voice, steady and calm, talking her through her own breathing, and she kept placing that image next to the memory of him sitting across from her in the conference room, quiet and composed, listening to her and his employment. She began to ask herself questions she had not thought to ask before. Not because of the accident had not made Marcus Webb a different person, but because the accident had made her stop moving long enough to actually think. She asked herself what she had really known about what was happening in his life. She asked herself whether anyone at Meridian had ever sat across from him, not to give a warning, but to genuinely ask what was going on. She asked herself whether she had ever considered that a man who had worked 6 strong years at her company might have a real reason for what looked like decline, and whether she had been curious enough to find out what it was before making a permanent decision. She called her HR director in the morning and asked to see Marcus's full file. She read through it carefully. She looked at the attendance records, every late arrival, every early departure, and she began matching the dates against something she had asked HR to quietly research. Every single one corresponded to appointment dates at a pediatric clinic. She sat with that for a long time. She did not say it out loud to anyone. She just sat with it. 3 weeks later, she reached out to Marcus through a mutual professional contact and asked if he would be willing to meet, not to offer him anything. She said, just to talk. He took 4 days to respond. Then he said yes. They met at a coffee shop in Buckhead on a Thursday morning. Diana arrived first. When Marcus walked in, he looked well tired, the way people with a lot of responsibility always look, but composed and grounded in a way that she noticed. She spoke first. She told him that she had gone back through his records after the accident. She told him what she had found about the dates. She told him that she did not believe she had fired him out of cruelty, but that she now believed she had made the decision without asking the right questions, and that those two things could both be true, and that the second one had still caused real harm to a real person. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he told her about Amara, about Keisha, about what it feels like to sit in a hospital waiting room calculating how many hours of work you have missed, and whether it is enough to cost you the income that pays for the treatment your child needs. He told her about the calculation every Black professional makes about how much of their personal life is safe to reveal, and how that calculation is not paranoia, it is experience. He told her about the mornings he finished reports in a hospital parking lot because he could not afford to fall behind, and he could not leave his daughter alone. Diana listened. She did not fill the silences. For the first time in a long time, she did not try to solve anything or manage anything. She just listened. Marcus did not return to Meridian. By then, the consulting work had grown into a full contract, and the flexibility it gave him was worth more than any salary. Amara's condition responded well to treatment. By spring, the doctors were encouraged. By summer, she was back to asking about her sock choices every morning, which Marcus had decided was the best possible sign. Diana restructured how Meridian handled employees facing personal crises. She did not make it public. She did not do it for recognition. She created a confidential disclosure option, something that allowed an employee to privately inform HR about a serious personal situation, so that the company could respond with flexibility before performance suffered. It was a simple thing. It should have existed already. Marcus told his story publicly for the first time at a small event for Black fathers navigating corporate workplaces. He did not tell it to condemn anyone. He told it because he wanted other men in his position to understand that silence, while sometimes necessary, should not be the only tool available to them. And he wanted them to know that surviving quietly, with dignity, while carrying more than anyone could see, that was not weakness. That was something else entirely. A reporter who attended the event asked him afterward what he thought about the man who had stopped to help on the highway that night. Marcus corrected her gently. "It was a woman," he said, "and I didn't stop because of who she was. I stopped because it was the right thing to do. That's all." He picked up Amara from school that afternoon. She had drawn a picture of the two of them in class stick figures holding hands, her in a purple dress, him taller with a big smile. She handed it to him very seriously as she got in the car, the way children hand over their art when they are proud of it. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he put it carefully on the passenger seat, where he could see it the whole drive home.